Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Research and Innovation Training Institute. We are honored today to have another member of the John B. Coleman Library staff to present a training to us. And today we have Michael Massaro, and Michael will present information on using SciFinder, not just for chemical engineers, but for others as well. So Michael, thank you for joining us. Take it away.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So obviously my name is Michael Massaro. I'm the STEM reference instruction collection development librarian for PVAMU. So that means I liaison for engineering, computer science, mathematics, physics, and the chemistry departments in John B. Coleman Library. So instead of a PowerPoint for this presentation, I'll be using a guide that you could see that I created for SciFinder that anyone can access, as well as I'll be screen sharing the database for the sake of demonstration. And if you do want to have access to this guide, because it does have links to stuff that I will be using, I'll post the link in here. Oops, sorry. I'll post the link in here, and if you don't know where the link is, it's the URL is just pvamu.libguides.com/SciFinder. Yes, while this guide is tailored for chemistry and chemical engineering students, for this presentation, I'm aiming to provide kind of creative ways that humanities and other professors can also make use of STEM databases. And for anyone watching the recording, if you missed the live presentation and still have questions, you could always use our Ask a Librarian service. Or if you want to make sure that I give you a fast response in particular, because I'm the liaison for STEM, you could email directly at mcmassaro@pvmu.edu. You're also welcome to stop by my office in John B. Coleman Library, room 26A. My hours are usually 8 to 5, but I would recommend sending an email first, because my hours aren't strictly 8 to 5, and you want to make sure I'll be there. Also, if you want me to make a custom course, or kind of a custom guide for your course, kind of like I have this, or like another custom guide for like a database, I'd be more than happy. So please reach out. Anyway, so on with the presentation. What exactly is SciFinder? SciFinder is a database of chemical and bibliographic information owned by the Chemical Abstract Service, CAS, which is a division of the American Chemical Society. And they were founded the same year as PVMU, actually, 1876. Also worth noting that bibliographic in this context just refers to the fact that it has records of text. Most databases do mostly consist of records like this, of literature, and the full text, are linked outside of them. So if your area of expertise isn't chemistry or chemical engineering, you probably never heard of SciFinder, or maybe you haven't, you don't know much about it, and that's okay. For those not really with a science background, SciFinder can still be a useful tool due to how many features it has, in my opinion. And even if my arguments don't completely win over non-STEM backgrounds, I feel like the features in this databases are good to know in case you encounter similar features in other databases. SciFinder is a very well-known database within chemistry and chemical engineering, and that's because it was the first to introduce a lot of features that I'll go into. And like, while some of these features were adopted by similar databases like Merck Index, or like Veritas Chemistry, or Elsevier's Reaxys, some of these features you'll probably encounter on other databases that aren't related to STEM at all. I also want to talk about how professors can utilize these primary STEM resources. So besides my STEM background, I also had a bit of a background in journalism. And just during my undergrad and interning for online publications, and in journalism, primary versus secondary sources is a very big deal, probably more so than any other type of writing. And I would often use STEM databases to collect primary sources. And if you forget exactly the difference between primary and secondary, a primary source is essentially just data, something that doesn't really have any form of analysis. So some examples of primary sources would be like documents, or like conference papers, or autobiographies or interviews, even like diaries, as where like secondary sources, are typical resources that students would cite for papers, just kind of like journal articles, textbooks, dissertations, news articles, political commentary, even stuff like that. So most databases available to us are just simply bibliographic databases. However, SciFinder offers additional tools, including searching for like a substance, reactions, and patents, and more, of course. Depending on your research, querying in a specialized database often makes your results more accurate, I think. And this is because you don't need any terms that in this, in SciFinder's case, indicate that you won't need to focus on chemistry or other subjects I listed. Because, from searching within SciFinder, the articles you get will most likely already be kind of like biased towards chemistry, but not all of them, but a lot of them will be. So I'd also like to go kind of over SciFinder's structure. So this is SciFinder here, and just kind of like how they lay everything out. So here you can see there's references. So they have over 52 million bibliographic references from over 1,000 journals. And this also includes patents, technical reports, textbooks, again, like conference proceedings and dissertations. And they maintain continuous coverage from 1907 to the present, which is pretty far back for continuous coverage. A quote from their site, just kind of what they say about it, says, "Get the information you need when you need it with our unrivaled collection of the world's most up-to-date chemistry and science-related information found in journals, patents, dissertations, and more. SciFinder is the only source that brings you information from early discovery through clinical trials with the combined coverage of CA Plus and Medline." And this is written here, and I've included links for CA Plus and Medline if you're wondering what those are. So Medline which is basically the U.S. National Library of Medicines, and they hold like about 25 million articles. So that's one of the databases they use. And then CA Plus, the other database, holds over 53 million records, and those are within all sorts of different subdisciplines. So the Medline one is basically just the one that's particular to chemistry, but CA Plus is very wide to just chemistry, and it's at least 80 subdisciplines. There's a lot. So that another thing we have here is the CAS registry, which is the substance search. So there are over 169 million unique organic and inorganic chemical substances, like alloys, coordination compounds, minerals, mixtures, polymers, etc. And so this registry will include the biosequences, which I may have time to get into, and basically what the CAS registry is kind of like a unique identifier for chemicals. So like kind of similar to how like a book will have like a DOI number, and that's a unique number only associated with that book. A chemical will have a CAS number, and that's the unique identifier for that substance. So I found it, knowing the number is pretty nice if you are searching substances, but again, this one does pertain a lot to chemistry, so I could talk more about it if there's questions later, but yeah, it is very chemistry focused. But so the other thing I want to talk about is reactions. So they have over 126 million reactions in their database, and if you're wondering what exactly you query with reactions, it's literally two chemicals coming together, whether it's like water and salt. That's a reaction, right? And it has a result. So and you can basically search the reactions, which I find is pretty useful because there's a whole bunch of different ways you can query with it. Like not just the typical text and search strategy, but I'll talk about more about that later. But and then suppliers, again, all that stuff is very chemistry focused, so I'll definitely talk about it if I have more time, but I want to kind of do kind of the basics first. So, probably the most important basic and something to note, which is very unique to this database, is that you have to make an account. So even if of course, most databases, you could just sign on, and if you use your Prairie login, it works fine. But with SciFinder, you actually have to make an account. I'll post the link again because I think some people joined. So if you go to this link, and then you scroll down to the SciFinder part, yeah, you can right here, this link where it says this link. If you click that, you can make an account, and then you just sign in. It's not too hard. But I'd like to maybe just give a couple minutes before I continue, just so people can make an account, because I do believe it helps to follow along and everything. And usually databases don't ask you to make an account, but because SciFinder does have a lot of features, they make you just kind of make an account. So something I'll go into soon, which is like how to save searches. You have to have an account because it saves those searches under your SciFinder account. So that's why they make you make one. So yeah, I'll just give just only a couple minutes. I don't want to take too much because I do have a lot I want to cover, but it is important, I think, to follow along. I don't want to super rush it. And it's also worth mentioning that when you do make an account, it will actually direct you to the original SciFinder site, and there will be a link here that at the top of it that says like go to SciFinder N, and I'm using SciFinder N because it's the newer one. I know a lot of faculty prefer the older SciFinder, but they are updating the SciFinder N a lot more frequently. So and I think it looks a lot cleaner too, in my opinion. So I'm going to be using the SciFinder N. If you're wondering, if you log into SciFinder and it looks a lot older, because it does have like that kind of early 2000s CSS look to it, like HTML, CSS. So just click that link at the top that says go to SciFinder N, and you should see this exactly how it looks. Yeah, I think I will continue now, just kind of because I do want to cover the reference tab a good amount. So I just want to talk about kind of how I usually use SciFinder. So, and usually I start by, I'm sure you've heard the term building a search strategy. And building a search strategy typically starts with an understanding of Boolean logic in the context of querying. I don't want to get too into it, but to at least get a refresher, the most important aspect to understand is the difference between and or statements. Joining two words or phrases with an and statement will make it so that both of those segments that you joined must be in the resource that you're looking for, as we're joining two words or phrases with an or statement, only one of them has to be there for the query. And you use a combination of these, so you can make a complex query that's also accurate to your results. For example, like the statement linear maps and modeling will need both of those statements present for the query to pull the result, because there's an and, not an or. As where if you put an or statement there, it could have linear maps, the phrase linear maps, or it could have modeling.
Michael, would you mind doing a quick example?
Yeah, no, I will be doing an example.
Okay.
And the example I wanted to use is a very simple one. You could basically make a whole, you could chain and or statements and make a very complex query. But what I wanted to do was just simply COVID in Houston, so like coronavirus. So if you type in corona, well, so I'm going to use an asterisk here, and what that does is that's a wild-card. So anything after, if it starts with corona, so some people do like coronavirus one word, and some people do two. So this is kind of like a way to encapsulate both those results, just kind of like a wild card. And I'll also do it here. So like the or statement, or COVID. So that makes it so that if they choose like to call coronavirus COVID or COVID coronavirus, it doesn't matter. It just has to have one of these, either COVID or coronavirus. And then I'll do the and statement here. So these two will be paired with this. And like I said, I wanted to look at Houston. So I'll type in Houston, and I'll also do an or for Harris in case they refer to Houston as Harris County. Yeah, and this is a very simple query, but it also probably will not yield us very many results because it's very specific, because I'm looking for COVID in Houston. So I would expect only about 100 results, but typically if you do a query that would be like more broad than just looking at you know, one city or one county, you'd probably get over 100,000 results. So yeah, I'll click search, see how many I get. Hopefully it's more than 100. I'm expecting about 100. Maybe it's a little bit under, it's not a big deal, but one big, well, not big, but one negative side effect about SciFinder is that it takes forever to load sometimes. Anyway, so yeah, so we got 175 results. So as you can kind of see, yeah, let's see, we have COVID, so, and then Houston and the wild card and stuff like that. So, and it wasn't too many results. So, but now I kind of want to talk about kind of like the filter options, because I do think the filter options are pretty interesting on SciFinder. So document type is obviously, you know, the type of medium that the resource is written in. So like a journal or a patent review, a book. I almost always do something here for the document type as for what I'm looking for, because usually, you know, if you're looking for a secondary source, it's almost always going to be a journal. But if you're not looking for a secondary source, you're looking for primary sources, it's good to just check, because you know, I could do patents and I could do biographies. You don't have to just click one of these. So I usually do typically like to limit the document type based on what type of, you know, of research I'm looking for. And since SciFinder is very well audited, kind of like Scopus is, typically the data on the record is very accurate and precise. So usually you could trust that. Then we have substance role here. So obviously this is the role of the substance serves in the results. And in our case, the substance would be COVID, the virus. You know, it makes sense here that most results here would fall under a biological study, because you know, they're probably studying the virus. But you know, they also have some other roles, and again, typically you get like over 100,000 results, so you would see like a bunch of roles here, and you could see like which are the most common. But because my query was very specific, we got 175. Language, so the language that the resource was written in. Typically, almost you always want English. So and you know, the vast majority of resources on this database will be English, but every now and again you see one that you can't read. So I always just check this, you know, just to make sure I don't get anything that I can't read, honestly. So, and then there's publication year. For this one, I'll actually do it because, as you can see, obviously I did a search for COVID, but we even get results from 1928 somehow. So, and obviously, really everything that I would want to see wouldn't be published before 2019. So I would probably, I mean, pub year is probably the most important filter in any database, just because you usually want to get recent results. But in this case, it's a no-brainer, because if it became out before 2019, then it's probably not the same COVID. Or, yeah, and that kind of cut our results in half, but that's good. I mean, it's not like we're going to even if we were doing research on this project, it's not like we'd read through all 80 of these. So yeah, publication year is always a good one to do. And then we have author here. Obviously, it's the author who wrote the article. But unless I'm backward searching or citation searching, I don't really use this. But this is but it can be very useful for analyzing your search results. So, for example, we know that we already kind of did our restriction by year, so we could see it's kind of the most popular authors. So you know, for example, if I wanted to go back and see more of David Bernard's research, like maybe he has more stuff on COVID. So this is kind of like a good way of searching. And then SciFinder also has an advanced search that I'll show you. But it's a very simple advanced search. I'm just saying it because you can search by author, like journal, or you could search by org, the organization. And the fact that SciFinder lets you search for it in the database is really nice because, like I said, it has really nice data, so it's easy to find stuff. And I do look at it a lot when I am doing research, just in case there's like one author who has just a lot more. That so you know I research him or maybe see what journals he typically writes on and stuff like that. And again, org, I kind of talked to it's basically the same thing. I don't really use this, but I do like looking at it in case there's an org that just really fits the what I'm looking for, like my research. Because if there is one, you know, I can search by that org, and that can be very useful. Again, with pub name, basically the same thing. See in this one, it's apparently it's this med journal that has a lot of stuff. So if I was doing a research project on this, I would most definitely actually look into this journal. And then concept is interesting. Concept is like another tag that they have just to have, you know, another option. It's kind of like if you were to go to IMDb and see genres or something, you know, like an action or a thriller. These are almost kind of like the genres, the concept. You know, obviously COVID-19 would be very relevant. And because this database is very accurate, I would trust that I wouldn't be missing too much by checking off this COVID-19 box. And it did get most, because if you remember, we only have 80 and 51, so that is a good sign. I feel like most databases would even give you less because they're not quite as accurate. And here are databases, like I said, it's split between Medline and CA+. So it makes sense that Medline would have a lot here because, you know, it's like a medical thing, of course, COVID is. And then, but if you didn't want a medical perspective on COVID for whatever reason, you can also look at CA+. And then search within results. This isn't really a field I use too much. It's basically like controlling F, you know, to find in page, but it's find in results. And usually I would add another statement here, but yeah. Is there a question? Sorry.
Mr. Massaro, I had a question.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to limit your search so that you only retrieve full text content that we have, is there a way? Because I was looking at it and I'm like, you know, how does one do that?
Yeah. So the thing with full text, I mean, I don't think they actually like, because obviously on, you know, on the PVAMU we have an option that says limit to full text, but here, because it's not just I mean, we are doing a reference search here, but there is more results than reference. I don't think they have this option, but luckily I mean, they have this full text drop down.
Yeah.
And like I said, there isn't actually any full text on this site. They always link to another source. So if I go to full sources here, and then I click on this DOI, it's going to bring me to the site of the actual journal. So see, so this one was.
Yeah, because I clicked there and went to some journal where it's like, ooh, we can't find. So I was just thinking in my head, is there a way that, you know, maybe somebody can do a research and just limit to the full text that we have access to?
Yeah, so unfortunately, they don't have that feature.
Oh, okay.
But you know, it's basically like, you know, I was going to go into this a bit later, but but a good thing to do is is pay attention to the journal, because like I said, because this is like a bibliographic record database. It's typically best to just kind of look up that journal, and then you can see who owns that journal, and then you can kind of see if PVAMU owns it.
Okay.
But I think for the most part, they do have the full text. I know that there will be cases where that's not the case, but yeah. Thank you for your question.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm. And so, yeah, and I was basically done with talking about these results. But yeah, so another thing I wanted to talk about is the save and retrieve function, because while a lot of databases do have a save and retrieve function, I think SciFinder is pretty nice. So you know, after you create a search strategy and you narrow down your results, SciFinder has an option that allows you to save the results of your query. And this I like doing because of the amount of time it takes for SciFinder to load all your search conditions. Because like I said, that might be the one biggest downside, has long load times. But that's because it's not just loading text, it's also loading data on chemicals and stuff like that typically. So I mean, it makes sense, but that's why I do like to save search and just to load it, because it saves time. And you could save a PDF of an annotated bib to your local memory using this feature as well of like your selected articles. You can obviously just email this PDF or save it under your SciFinder account. And typically I like saving it under my account because you can also do other features. So so let's say I wanted to save this query. As you can see, there's a big save button here. So that's a good hint. But just what I wanted to highlight especially is, you know, you can save, or you can name it whatever you want. Say it's like if you were trying to find certain results with this query. And then these alerts are actually, I think, one of the main things that I really do like about SciFinder. So especially kind of with like a hot topic, kind of like COVID, there are a lot of articles being published just all the time on it. So you can actually get alerts for articles published here, and you can even control the alert. So you know, you can get an alert right as soon as it's uploaded, so like the as available, or if you know if you're getting too many notifications and you don't want to make your query more specific, you could just make it a weekly or a monthly thing, and it will just say these are all the new articles that fit your query. And it's just a good way to kind of like almost passively do research because, you know, it's like, it doesn't mean that you have to keep going to SciFinder and keep kind of clicking back on it to see if they have any new articles. You could kind of just make one query, and if you or multiple too, of course, you know, you could be getting notifications for multiple queries, and you could turn them off whenever. You know, even beyond research, sometimes, you know, people just use this tool for personal news notifications, kind of like how you can sign up for alerts on, you know, on like Reddit or Twitter on like certain topics or, you know, trending things. You can get like a notification of your own personal query. Yeah, and I like it because I usually do the as available. And what I do is if I find myself getting way too many queries is I make my query more specific. So I'll often, like, you know, kind of when I was doing the Boolean logic, I'll add another and statement, and I'll make it so it really gives me the results I'm looking for. And I know a lot of other databases started kind of adopting this too, but in SciFinder, like, just, I keep saying it, but because it's audited so well, it really makes it nice doing a research on this as opposed to other databases. So another tool I wanted to talk about is the draw search. So a draw search is a query made by a molecular, sorry, it's hard for me to say, molecular drawing of a chemical substance or reaction. Draw searches are useful because you can search for the exact drawing, or you can use your drawing as like the base of the substance or the reaction, or you could just search for stuff that's similar enough, which is something, you know, you don't really have access to by just doing a normal text query. So if you did want to, oops, I can close these. If you did want to kind of learn more about the draw tool, I do have a section on here. It has this video, which is very helpful. You know, I just simply don't have time to go over how to draw molecules, but something that I do use more than actually drawing is just using the import feature. So what you could do is, well, let's return to home here. And then, the file that I have right now is a reaction. So I'm going to go to reactions and then draw. And then just up here, you can see import. And here's my file. It's already there just because it's the only CXF file I have, so it doesn't show anything else. So I open it, and here it is. You know, right here, you know, this is just like a phenolasic acid reaction. So you'll see that it automatically kind of does stuff. I mean, you didn't see me write this, but I did write it and then I saved it. But if you put this arrow here, it automatically will label this as a reactant and this is a product. So it's fairly, it recognizes, you know, kind of your process, and then, you know, you just hit OK here, and then you search, and then very similar to a reference search, you'll have options right here to kind of filter it further. So kind of what I was talking about, you have the structure here. So we only have 52 reactions as drawn, but if I was just to use that as a substructure, so like the core of the reaction, you get about 4,600 results. And then if you just say it's similar, like, you know, this reaction is pretty similar to this one, then you get even more, and then you get, you know, 18,000 results. So it's pretty interesting how you can search and get different results by just kind of how similar the reaction is to the chem draw that you drew. But, you know, as you can see, then we also have other stuff. So there's the yield. So like how much of, like in the reaction, how much stuff was lost to get to the reactant, to the product. Most of them are 90 to 100%. I would almost always use 90 to 100% if you do want, you know, one that yields high, just because there's no real reason to look at these if you do get a lot of results. And then there's the number of steps. This one only has one, but obviously there can be multiple reactions or to get from a reactant to a product, but the one I used was very simple. So it's just one step. Non-participating functional groups, these are just kind of other products that can be involved in it. And then, but in this case doesn't even really matter. So, but then you also have like experimental protocols, which are just any experimental protocols, you know, including the reaction. And you know, if you are looking for one of these protocols, or, you know, that's kind of interesting. But yeah, and then, you know, reaction type, full. I mean, because you can have a half reaction and stuff like that. And then like kind of different reagents, catalysts, which obviously make the reaction go faster. Solvents, you know, can like dissolve in. Obviously, most of the time it's water. Commercial availability. SciFinder has a lot of tools in general about commodifiable chemicals, and this is kind of like one thing you can do. And then reaction notes, just kind of, again, this is kind of like the IMDb genres, where there's like just different types of reactions that you can select if you're looking for one that's very helpful. And then again, it has like a search within results area. And then it has this source reference stuff. And this again is very similar to all the ref search kind of fields. So now we are kind of running to the end of the presentation, because I was kind of aiming to end around 40 minutes. And I was kind of going to talk about the full text and all the kind of different ways you can find them, because as you can see, there's a lot of different ways to search SciFinder, but you can essentially find a full text for almost anything, of course, unless you're just looking at substance information or like a commodifiable chemical or something like that. But so even in this reaction search, there's like a full text based off this. And again, it gives you the DOI, and it will link you to another site because there aren't any full text on this site. But this is a good way to kind of see, just to find like a reference to. Yeah, and this patent pack thing is a SciFinder feature that you know, you can compare patents or find patents, and that is all very useful. But yeah, I think now would be a good time to open it up for questions. I could definitely talk, you know, if there aren't very many questions, I could definitely talk a lot more about some other features I didn't have time to get into, but I know that I should kind of stop at this mark and open it up.
If you've got about 5 more minutes, you can go ahead and ask, continue. And
Oh.
there are a few questions that I have.
Yeah, well, do you think I could just answer those questions? That's
Sure.
okay.
So one question is, what are some other features that SciFi has that makes it unique?
Okay, right. So obviously, as you can imagine, they're very chemistry focused. So I didn't really have time to go into suppliers, but suppliers section is there really isn't anything special about the querying. Again, you can use that CES number I was talking about, which is like a DOI for chemicals, or you could just use its name. But it is kind of interesting. So let's say peroxide. That's just what came to mind. No particular reason. So here you can actually see you can sell people who sell peroxide, and also some other close chemicals. So, and you can even see here, there's information, it ships within 2 weeks. There's a link going out, so you can actually order from the supplier directly, like not through SciFinder or anything. It's just linked. If it looks, so yeah, see, so this would be the suppliers, and see that they have like pricing here. They have the purity, delivery time, and like, you know, how they pack it, the kind of different sizes. So again, that is very towards chemistry, so that's why I didn't do it. But another feature, and this one is pretty confusing if you don't know about chemistry, but it's called the biosequences. So biosequence is already a unique thing to SciFinder. Like this would maybe even kind of confusing to chemistry students even. But I would like to point out, just because there's not really anything similar to it, even with chemistry databases. So as you can kind of see, there are 3 types of searches you can do with it. One is kind of this one is what BLAST stands for, is the basic alignment search tool. And it searches for like kind of proteins, and it kind of searches for the pattern in proteins of certain local alignments. And then for this one is like a complementary, like a determining region, which searches for like antibody and like T cell reports, stuff like that. And then this one is kind of searches for patterns in like DNA and RNA. So for this one, let me see, I'll type up in off screen a little, and then I'll just copy and paste it here. So this is an example of just kind of like an RNA kind of segment, and it actually takes a lot of times to load this up. So I actually did already have this one preloaded, I think. Oh yeah, view results here, and this is, and you get a bunch of sequence results, like a bunch of similar sequences here. As you can see, like this is kind of comparing them, and you can get like a subject, and this is like, again, like another sequence. And it, yeah, again, SciFinder is a very powerful database, but I skip stuff like this in the main presentation just because it's very particular to chemistry. Oh, and one thing I didn't get to, I did talk about a little bit, is in the reference, it has this advanced search. And I just wanted to highlight this real quick. I didn't go over this because it seems simple enough, you know, because it has, you can search for authors, you can search journals, and you can search by organizations. But I did at least want to go over it, well, briefly right now, as it does highlight the importance of kind of what I was saying earlier about using those side limiters to kind of see like the authors and the journals and the organizations that are kind of common in your queries. Because, you know, like I said, if that one journal I saw that had a lot of results, I could come over here. I think it was that RDX MedLive one, but I could come over here and start searching it, and I often do use the advanced search for that. But yeah, I think those are kind of the 3 main features I glossed over because either the advanced search, I thought it was intuitive, but the biosequence, you could do a whole another presentation on that, and it is very interesting, but yeah, it's very chemistry dense. So.
And the other question is, are there any other ways to find full text?
Yeah, so that kind of goes back with the other question, any other ways to find full text. But basically, almost all of these searches, you could find full text in. Again, there isn't like a limiter to exclude it only to full text. But like, again, for like a substance, if you just search up a substance, you can find a bunch of full text on it, and it'll just probably be like an analysis on that substance, or maybe a reaction between that substance. And then like a reference, and then suppliers. But yeah, I think like the really the kind of best thing, kind of what I was talking about, is that if you have like a journal that that the full text is in, it's good to just actually go to that journal's page and see it, and see if they have it there, under PVAMU, of course, because like SciFinder doesn't have any full text literally in SciFinder, but it has a lot of like a record, and you go to that page to link it anyway. So if you did have access to the full text, it would be there, and it doesn't matter if you get there through SciFinder or not. So yeah, were there any other questions?
One last question is, where can I find chemicals to upload in the draw query feature, which I think is a very cool feature?
Yeah. So so that was kind of like what I was doing with this draw tool. I had one pre-ready, but if you do need one, you could basically just go here in substances, and you can find it. So I'll just use peroxide again. And before I did that in the supplier search, but now this is just in the substance search, so it'll give like a lot more technical information on it. So yeah, so here's peroxide, and here's the CS number, so it's unique number. See, you could just kind of click it right here. Yeah, and here you can download this, and you can use it as a query. And like I said, if you were thinking of a particular reaction, so like peroxide being the thing that turns it into a reactant, all you have to do is draw that arrow, and then you would search up the other chemical, and then it would automatically label it as the product. Yeah, and this substance search here, it has this image, but it will also have like some reactions here. It have like kind of all like and all these refs here. They can also be, most of them like are linked to full text. So and that is another way to find full text, I guess, if you just want to find it by searching a chemical, but you will probably get a lot of results. And here's just, they also, again, besides all of the books and everything, there is also just information on chemicals here, like this isn't citing anything, it just has the information on this website. So that's why it's also pretty popular for chemistry.